everyone and welcome to Equestrian. Today I wanted to quickly go over why our horses will or won't turn and how turning should look like based on the horse's biomechanics. We often hear go straight or sit up straight, but generally speaking, going in a straight line is in fact one of the most difficult things in horse riding, since we basically can't sit up fully straight. The rider should not only look straight when we are looking from the side, but also when we go to the back side. The spine should be straight, and the three other lines that you can see right now are the rider's shoulders, hips, and the horse's hips. To make it all make sense, I'll be using a simple drawing of a horse. I added two orange points which illustrate the legs of a rider and two orange lines which would be both the rider's and the horse's hips. Now I joined it all together to make up a rectangle. Let's focus on the situation when the rider's and the horse's hips work together. So whenever the rider tilts their hips, it'll affect the path on which the horse's hips move. Now I added two yellow lines which illustrate the rider's and the horse's shoulders. The yellow line represents the way the rider's and the horse's shoulders work together. Now I'll add the rider's hands, which would be the two blue dots, and the reins. In the situation illustrated on the drawing, the horse can move forward and everything works together in harmony. Now that we've got that covered, let's move on to turning. In my opinion, there is no need to pull or kick. All that we've got to do is to look in the direction that we want to go in, so that our shoulders turn to that direction. In most cases, the horse will just follow. A problem might arise whenever we tilt our body or make other mistakes, but we will cover that in a second. Right now, let's focus on how much movement the rider has to actually have. I'll use a very simple drawing to explain that. The most important thing is that the rider's hips and shoulders work independently. In the beginning, it will be extremely hard to separate the movement of the hips, the hands, and the legs. Keeping the horse in the turn is to keep the horse constantly turning. And what I mean by that is to keep the horse's spine bent in the same exact way as the path that you want to draw in your arena. For starters, let's look how our body can adjust to the flexion. I drew the spot where our legs, the horse's and the rider's hips, should sit. These two orange lines work together, so naturally our legs will move a little bit, so the hip line will look a little bit different. It will basically sit at a 90-degree angle towards the turn. Now I'm adding the horse's and the rider's shoulders and joining the two lines together. As you can see, there is a certain point where the rider is strongly bent towards the turn. The red circle marks the places where most problems appear. That is also the point where the rider needs to keep their shoulders and hips extra separate and in control while keeping their spine straight. Now, what do the reins do? They are only responsible for the way the horse's neck sits. The little blue arrow represents the point where the horse often bends the outside rein on its neck and goes through all your outside cues. We can help that by putting our hands a little bit further away from each other. Following these previous instructions, we can actually turn without using reins, so riding in the neck rope isn't problematic at all. Keeping in mind the way our and the horse's hips sit, let's look at why it won't turn. The most common thing we see is the rider tilting their body into the turn. What happened here is that instead of keeping their back straight, the rider put all of their body weight inside the turn. Because the rider bent their spine, the horse couldn't feel the cues coming from the shoulder. Also, because the right side got lighter, naturally the horse moved over there. What we can do to help that is to keep our spine straight as if we wanted to touch the sky with our head. The second thing is to look wherever we want to go. That way our shoulder line turns and the horse naturally turns its shoulder line in the same direction. Because the reins aren't there for turning, I advise considering them as a part of the horse's mouth. So our forehands up to the horse's mouth belong to the horse. The hands and the reins are there for the horse to communicate with us. Here's a little pro tip, as always. If your horse won't turn, just close your eyes. It makes us more aware of the placement of our hips, shoulders, arms, and makes it easier to complete the turn. If we build a nice huge frame, it will eventually get easy and fun to turn both for the horse and the rider. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, you can always direct message us at Instagram, which is Equestrian, and also remember that you can always ask us questions or contact us at bioequestrian@gmail.com.